I never thought I'd find myself here, especially not like this. Hell, I never thought I'd be that guy, the one writing a post about how his wife cheated on him during his cancer treatment. It's not a story I wanted to tell, but after everything that's happened, I feel like I need to get it out, to say it aloud or maybe just put it somewhere I can control the narrative. It started about 6 months ago. I was diagnosed with lymphoma, and everything changed overnight. The treatments were brutal, constant fatigue, nausea that wouldn't quit, a sickly metallic taste in my mouth that clung to everything I ate or drank. My body was a mess and my mind was just as bad. I was vulnerable, fragile even, and I trusted her to hold me together, to stay loyal while I fought to stay alive. We'd been together 10 years. I loved her, or at least I thought I did. She was my anchor. No matter how bad things got, I knew she'd be there, or so I believed. I spent most of those months in bed, hooked up to IVs or lying on the couch, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd make it. She visited me every day, brought me food, held my hand through the worst nights. I thought she was my rock. But then I started noticing small things, little inconsistencies. She'd leave her phone on the kitchen table with the screen unlocked when she thought I wasn't paying attention. I'd catch her texting someone, quickly hiding the screen when I looked over. I brushed it off at first. I was too exhausted to care. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe I was just paranoid because of the drugs. Until I found the messages. Just one night when I was feeling a little better, I decided to check her phone. I was weak, tired of being sick and in pain, and I didn't think I'd find anything. But I did. I found a string of texts, flirty, suggestive, like she was playing with someone. I saw her calling him babe more than once. My stomach dropped. My knees felt weak. I scrolled through, and there were photos, too, hidden in a chat thread, pictures of her in a hotel room, smiling at her phone, probably taken during some secret weekend getaway. That was the moment everything changed. I didn't to ask her what was going on. The evidence was right there, plain as day. I stared at her messages, my hands trembling. My chest felt like a vice had wrapped around it, squeezing until I almost couldn't breathe. The sick part, I didn't even feel surprised. Deep down, I knew she was capable of this. Still, seeing it all confirmed what I suspected, that she'd been cheating on me, right under my nose while I was battling cancer. I confronted her that night. I remember the words coming out stiff and cold because I couldn't feel much else. "Who is he?" I asked, voice low but angry enough to make the walls shake. She looked at me, eyes wide with guilt, then quickly looked away. "It's nothing," she whispered. "Yeah, right, nothing." I could see the lies in her face, the way she fidgeted, the way her hands trembled. She tried to deny it, but I wasn't buying it. The pain was sharp, like a blade twisting inside me, and in that moment I realized I was done. Done with her lies, her betrayal, her fake moments of caring. I'd fought for my life, and she'd been living some secret double life behind my back. I don't think she thought I could find out, or maybe she did but didn't care. Either way, I had enough. Enough of the fake smiles, the staged affection, the lies. I saw a flicker of something in her eyes, fear maybe, or regret. But it was too little, too late. That night marked the start of everything. I couldn't stay in that house, surrounded by her betrayal. I needed a plan. I needed to make her pay, not just for cheating, but for breaking the trust I thought we had. I knew I couldn't just leave quietly, not after what I'd seen. She needed to understand the damage she'd done, so I started laying the groundwork. I didn't tell anyone yet, no one I could trust, just me and my thoughts. I had to be careful. I had to get everything in order. I started digging through her stuff when she was out, looking for more proof, more evidence. I didn't want her to walk away thinking she could get away with this. Not after everything. What I found next was even worse. Photos of her from that weekend. On her phone, her face lit up with a fake smile. I saw the hotel in the background, the same one from the messages. I saw her in a different dress, holding a glass of wine, and then the getaway itself. They'd gone somewhere expensive, somewhere I'd never been invited to. That weekend, I could picture her laughing, carefree, while I was struggling to breathe, fighting for my life. It all boiled down to one thing: she was cheating on me during my weakest moment. That's when I knew I had to do something drastic. I wasn't the kind of guy to run or sweep it under the rug. No, I wanted her to feel the full weight of what she'd done. I wanted her to see that I wasn't naive, that I wasn't some pushover. I started planning the next steps. I needed leverage, proof, a way to turn this around on her. The pieces were all there. I had her texts, the photos, and her own admission in the messages. The question was, what was I going to do with it? How could I make her regret this? How could I make her understand that she'd lost everything, that I wasn't going to let her walk away from this without consequences? That night, lying in the dark, I felt a strange calm. Maybe it was anger, maybe it was determination. Either way, I knew I'd be ready when the time came, and I wasn't going to hold back. Would you like me to keep going? In the days that followed, I couldn't get the images out of my head. The hotel room, her smile, the way her hair caught the light, everything about her betrayal burned into my mind like a brand. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that weekend getaway in vivid detail. It was like some sick movie playing on repeat inside my head, and I couldn't make it stop. I knew I had to be strategic. I wasn't going to confront her again without something concrete, something that would make her realize I'd seen everything. If I was going to make her feel even a fraction of what I was feeling, anger, disappointment, betrayal, I had to come prepared. That's when I decided to dig a little deeper into her phone. I was careful, methodical. I knew she kept her phone passworded, but I also knew she was reckless sometimes. She'd leave it lying around, and I was good at hiding my emotions when I needed to be. I waited for an evening when she was out with friends, then snuck into her room and unlocked her phone. I already had a feeling I'd find more than just the initial evidence. And I was right. There, buried in her messaging app, I uncovered a string of texts that she'd hidden from me, more flirtation, plans for future weekends away, and photos of her in lingerie sent to him. My stomach clenched. The physical evidence was undeniable now. She had her secret life, her weekend escapes, while I was sick, fragile, fighting to stay alive. This was beyond betrayal. It felt like complete destruction of the trust I'd built over the years. I sat in her room, the phone cooling against my palm, feeling a strange mix of rage and sadness. How could she do this? How could she look me in the eye every day and pretend everything was fine? I wanted to yell, to break something, but I knew I had to stay calm. I needed to control the situation if I was going to come out on top. That night, I kept the evidence hidden in a safe folder on my laptop. I didn't want her to suspect I was onto her. Instead, I started mapping out my plan. I'd confront her when I was ready, but I needed to be smarter. I needed a way to make her regret every lie, every sneaking moment. I also made a list of what I'd do once I had my evidence ready. First, expose the affair publicly. No, not in front of everyone, but enough to make her feel exposed. Second, cut her out of my life completely, rebuild myself from the ground up. And third, never look back. I was done being the fool in this story. Some nights I'd hold her phone in my hands and think about what I'd say. I'd practice my words, imagining her reaction. I knew she'd deny everything, try to gaslight me, but I had the proof. I could almost taste her panic. That's what I wanted, the look on her face when she realized I'd caught her, when she knew there was no way out. Meanwhile, I kept my distance. I pretended to be fine, but inside I was seething. Every time I saw her, I felt my fists tighten. Her smile, so fake and hollow now. The way she clung to her phone like it was some kind of lifeline. I watched her go through her routines, and I thought, you think you're clever. You think you can keep this up. I couldn't help but notice her nervous glances when I was around. She knew I was onto her, even if she didn't say anything. That little flicker of guilt in her eyes made me feel a little better, like I was finally in control of this mess. Maybe I wasn't going to fall apart after all. Maybe I'd turn this around. I also started paying close attention to her interactions with our friends and her family. If I wanted maximum impact, I'd need to go for full exposure. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done, not just in private but publicly too. If she thought she could cheat behind my back and get away with it, she had another thing coming. The plan was simple but effective. When I was ready, I'd confront her with everything I had. I'd call her out in front of everyone, reveal her secrets, and leave her to face the consequences. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about making sure she paid for the pain she caused me. She needed to know I wasn't weak, that I wasn't going to be tossed aside like yesterday's trash. So I waited, practicing my words, gathering my evidence, and feeling the fire inside me grow hotter every day. I knew the confrontation would come soon. The question was, how would she react? Would she try to lie her way out of it? Or would she finally see that I wasn't the fool she thought I was? One thing was certain, I was ready. And when I finally stepped into the ring, I wasn't coming out without making her regret every second of betrayal. Would you like me to continue? The day finally arrived when I decided I'd had enough waiting. I woke up with that strange, metallic taste still lingering in my mouth from chemo, but my mind was sharp. I'd been planning this moment for weeks, piecing everything together, and now it was time. I knew I couldn't just walk into her space and throw everything on her. I had to be precise, calculated. I kept my emotions in check as I made my way to her place. The weather was dreary, the sky a dull gray, matching how I felt. Inside, I was a mess, nerves jittering, palms slick, stomach twisting like a knot. But I made sure that my face was calm. I didn't want her to see the storm brewing underneath. She was in the living room, scrolling her phone like nothing was wrong, probably expecting I'd come in, pretend everything was fine, and go back to pretending everything was okay. I shut the door quietly behind me. "Hey," I said, voice even but colder than ice. She looked up, surprised, her eyes flickering with that flicker of guilt I'd been noticing. "Hey," she said, trying to sound casual. "What's going on?" I took a deep breath. "I know everything," I said simply. Her face immediately turned pale, her eyes darted to the phone in her hand as if I'd just shattered her illusion of control. "I saw the messages, the photos, your little weekend away. How long have you been lying to me?" My voice didn't shake, but inside, my heart was pounding like a drum. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her hands trembled as she tried to cover her phone, but I was faster. I reached out and snatched it from her grasp. Her eyes widened in panic. "You've been cheating on me," I said, voice low and dangerous, while I was fighting for my life. Her lips quivered. "It's not what you think," she whispered, voice trembling. "It was just a mistake." "No," I cut her off. "It wasn't a mistake, it was a choice, your choice." I held up the phone, the photos burned into my brain, now flashing in front of her. "You think I don't see the pattern? The hotel, the texts, the secret weekends. It's all right there. You betrayed me in my weakest moment. How could you do that?" She looked like she wanted to say something, maybe deny it again, but the guilt was written all over her face. She looked small, fragile, like she was crumbling under the weight of her own lies. That's when I saw her try to reach for her phone again, but I stepped back. "No," I said firmly, "this ends today." I threw her phone onto the couch. "You're not going to lie your way out of this, I've seen enough." My voice was steady, but the ache in my chest was almost unbearable. It felt like I was smashing my own heart with every word. She looked at me, tears welling up in her eyes, voice cracking. "Please, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was lonely and he was there, and I didn't think it would come to this." "That's bullshit," I said, voice rising. "You made a choice. You made a choice to cheat on me while I was sick, while I was trying to stay alive. Do you even understand how that feels?" Her shoulders shook as tears spilled down her cheeks. "I was stupid. I thought it was just a mistake, and I swear I never meant to hurt you this much." I looked at her, feeling the rage simmering just beneath my skin. "You should have thought about that before you let him take pictures of you, before you planned weekends behind my back. You think I'm just gonna forgive this? You think I can just forget I was fighting for my life while you were out doing God knows what?" She reached out, her voice almost begging. "Please, I love you. I messed up, I know, but I swear I'll make it right." I took a step back, shaking my head. "No, not anymore." I felt a strange calm settle over me, like I'd finally seen the full picture. I knew what I had to do, and it wasn't to forgive or forget. It was to remove her from my life completely. "I want you out of my house," I said, voice firm. "And I want those photos gone. You're done here." I pointed to the door. "Don't come back. Don't try to contact me. I deserve better than this." Her face crumpled and she looked like she wanted to say something, but I didn't give her the chance. I turned and headed for the door, feeling the weight lift just a little as I did. The house was silent as I left, her sobs echoing behind me. I didn't look back. I just kept walking, knowing I made the right choice. I'd finally taken control of the situation, and I'd be damned if I let her ruin me any further. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was done being a victim. I was done being the fool. That confrontation was just the beginning. Now the real work started, rebuilding myself piece by piece. And I knew one thing for sure. I was never letting someone get that close again without knowing exactly who they were. Would you like me to continue? After I kicked her out, the house felt eerily quiet. The silence was deafening, almost worse than her crying inside the bedroom while I was standing there confronting her. I stood at the doorway for a long moment trying to catch my breath, feeling the sting of betrayal still burning in my chest. It was like I'd been punched in the stomach, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. I finally did it. I finally faced the truth head-on. I knew I had to set everything in motion now. No more waiting, no more second-guessing. The evidence was right there. Photos, texts, her trembling voice on the phone. I had what I needed to make her really understand what she'd lost. But I also knew I couldn't just hand her the proof and expect her to somehow accept it. No, this had to be a calculated move. Over the next few days, I started planning my revenge. Not the kind that involves violence or childish schemes, but something smarter. Something that would sting her more than any slap or angry word ever could. I dug into her social media accounts, her emails, her contacts, anything that could give me leverage. I wanted her to know I wasn't done, that I'd fight back with everything I had. I began slowly revealing pieces of the truth to some of her friends. I didn't want to go public just yet, but I wanted to make sure they knew she was capable of deceiving everyone, even her closest friends. I sent a few snippets of the messages, the photos I'd taken, and made sure she knew I was watching her. Honestly, it felt good to be the one in control for once. One evening, I sat down with a cup of coffee and a plan. I was going to send her a message, nothing too crazy, just enough to make her realize I was serious. I typed out a simple, cold note. You cheated. You lied, you betrayed everything we built. You might think you got away with it, but I see everything, and this is only the beginning. I didn't include my number or any details, just enough to let her know I was aware and I was angry. The next morning, I saw her reaction. She called me frantic, begging, crying. Please don't do this, she begged. It was a mistake, I swear, I love you. Her voice cracked, desperate. I didn't say much. I just let her talk. I knew exactly how to keep her on edge. I told her, it's too late for apologies. You had your chance and now I'm done. Then I hung up. That call was the beginning of her panic. Now she knew I had her by the balls. I kept the pressure on, sending her small messages, hints, and snippets of the evidence I'd collected. Every time she tried to call me or text, I ignored her at first, but I was watching her every move. It was like a game of chess, and I was making all the right moves. One thing I realized early on, she'd been trying to keep her secret life hidden, but she was sloppy. She left little clues, moments of weakness. I started noticing her nervous glances, the way she'd rush through her day, and her constant, anxious check of her phone. She was cracking under the pressure, and I was loving every second of it. I also took steps to secure my own peace of mind. I changed my passwords, blocked her on everything, and made sure she couldn't access any of my accounts or private stuff. I wanted her to feel helpless, like she'd lost her grip on everything. If she thought she could walk away and pretend none of this happened, she had another thing coming. Meanwhile, I was making arrangements. I contacted a lawyer, started the paperwork for a clean break. I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way back into my life. No, I wanted total separation, financial, emotional, everything. She made her choice, and now she'd face the consequences of her actions. In my mind, I kept replaying her face, her lies, the betrayal. It fueled my resolve. Every time I thought about her sneaking around, I clenched my fists tighter. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, anger, mixed with a cold sense of justice. She thought she could cheat without consequences. Not anymore. And so I kept the pressure building. I knew she'd try to spin her story, deny everything, or worse, turn it around on me, but I had the evidence. I had the control. I made sure she understood that I wasn't going to be the victim anymore. I was rewriting the rules. One night I got a text from her, a simple apology, begging me to meet and talk. I read it, then tossed my phone aside. I knew what she wanted, to manipulate me, to make me think she was sorry, but I wasn't buying it. I had already made my decision. I grabbed the keys to her car and packed her belongings in a box. I walked out, and as I placed the box on her doorstep, I realized I was finally free. Free from her lies, her betrayal, her deception. I looked at the house one last time, a symbol of everything I'd lost but also of everything I was about to gain. That night I sat alone, feeling the emptiness but also a strange sense of clarity. I'd taken control of my life again, and I was ready to move forward, better, stronger, and more cautious than ever. Would you like me to continue? The days after I cut her loose felt like a blur of quiet reflection and determination. I stayed away from the house, refused to answer her calls or texts. She kept trying, but I knew I had made my point. The evidence was out there, and I'd already set the scene for what was coming next. Still, I felt the ache in my chest, a hollow space where trust used to be. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming myself. I spent those days rebuilding my mental armor piece by piece. I had to, because I knew she wouldn't go quietly. I kept my guard up, staying on alert for any more signs she might try to worm her way back into my life. Meanwhile, I also started focusing on my recovery, both physically and emotionally. I couldn't afford to fall apart completely, not after everything I'd been through with cancer. One thing I did was enlist the help of my closest friend, someone I trusted. I told him everything, showed him the photos, the texts, the whole story. His eyes widened at first, but then he nodded slowly. "You're doing the right thing," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "She's not worth your peace." That simple reassurance helped me stay grounded, and I started planning my next move. I knew I had to make her feel the consequences of her betrayal on a deeper level, something that hit her where it hurt most. I wasn't just going to walk away. I wanted her to regret ever crossing that line. I wanted her to see that I was serious about ending this chapter of my life for good. I needed her to understand that she had lost the trust of someone who, despite his illness, was still standing strong. The first step was gathering all the evidence I could get, more messages, any signs of her trying to contact him, the hotel receipts, anything I could use to make her realize I knew everything. I wasn't interested in revenge for revenge's sake. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions, to understand that she destroyed something real. That's when I decided to leak some of the evidence to a few mutual friends. Carefully, covertly. I didn't want to destroy her completely, but I wanted her to know I wasn't backing down. Within days, I saw the fallout. Mutual friends started to whisper, questions arose. She got calls, texts, and looks of suspicion. I stayed silent, watching from the sidelines, letting her stew in her own guilt. Her social media posts became frantic. She tried to act like nothing was wrong, but I knew better. She was unraveling, and I was the one who made her do it. One afternoon, she finally caved and called me. Her voice was trembling, trying to sound apologetic, but I wasn't interested in apologies anymore. "I'm sorry," she said, tears slipping into her voice. "Really, I am. Can we just talk?" I took a deep breath. "There's nothing left to say," I replied. "You lied, you cheated, and you betrayed everything we shared. I'm done." The line went dead after that, but I knew she'd try again. Maybe with more tears, more begging. I didn't care. My mind was made up. I started preparing for the final step, cutting her out completely. I went through her belongings, took what I needed, and made sure any connection she had to my life was severed. I changed my number, blocked her on every platform. It was like ripping off a band-aid, painful but necessary. I told myself, no more second chances, no more excuses. All the while, I felt the sting of betrayal deep inside, like a wound that wouldn't close, but I also felt a strange sense of liberation. I was finally taking control. I was finally reclaiming my life, my peace. I was reminded that even when everything seemed to fall apart, I could still stand tall. I was stronger than her lies, and I was going to prove it. One night, I sat in my apartment, exhausted but resolute. I looked around, thinking about everything I'd been through, the pain, the betrayal, the heartbreak, but I also thought about the future. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was ready. Ready to move on, ready to rebuild. And that's when I made the decision. I walked to my desk, picked up my keys, and started packing. I was finally leaving that house behind for good. I wasn't going to let her ruin my life any longer. As I closed the door behind me, I knew I was making a clean break. It was time to start fresh without her shadow hanging over me. The last thing I did was hand over the keys to a new tenant, someone I trusted. It felt symbolic, like closing a chapter and turning the page. I walked away, lighter than I'd felt in months, knowing I was finally free. That experience taught me one thing: no matter how broken you feel, you can rebuild. No matter how deep the betrayal, there's always a way to take back your power. The only real revenge is living well, without the weight of lies dragging you down. And that's exactly what I plan to do. The days that followed felt like a strange mix of relief and reflection. I was finally free from her, from the lies, from the betrayal that had cut so deep. I told myself I'd never let anyone pull me down like that again. The house was gone, her presence erased except for the memories that still haunted me in quiet moments, those flashes of her that wouldn't quite fade. But I knew I was stronger now, more cautious, more aware of the kind of damage that lies can do. As I walked out of that chapter of my life, I felt a weight lift. No more pretending, no more fake smiles or hiding my pain. I was done with the silence, done with the secrets. I took that key, that final act of leaving everything behind, and handed it to the landlord, watching as the lock clicked shut for good. That key was more than just a piece of metal, it was my release. I sat down on my porch that evening, feeling the cool breeze brush past me, and took a long, slow breath. I looked up at the sky, stars just beginning to twinkle through the dark, quiet night. It was a symbol of hope, of a new beginning I was finally allowing myself to believe in. I realized that while I couldn't change what she did, I could control how I responded, how I moved forward. I reflected on what I'd learned through all this. Trust is fragile, I guess, and sometimes you have to learn the hard way who's truly on your side. But more than anything, I learned I'm capable of surviving the worst. Cancer, heartbreak, betrayal. They all tried to break me, but I stood tall. I fought for my life, and I fought for my dignity. In the end, I found peace in taking back my power. I didn't need her approval or her apologies. I didn't need to carry the weight of her lies anymore. What I did need was to heal, to rebuild, and to trust again, slowly, carefully, but this time with my eyes wide open. I knew it would take time, maybe a long time, but I was willing to wait for that peace. So I got up, looked around my new place, and felt a quiet pride. I had made it through the storm, and I had come out stronger on the other side. Betrayal didn't define me, my resilience did. I knew I'd never forget what happened, but I also knew I wouldn't let it control me. I was finally free to live on my own terms, and from now on I would choose who to trust. I would choose who to let in, and I'd never again let anyone walk over me while I was down. That was the real victory, finding my strength when I thought I had none. I'd come out of this knowing one thing for sure: I was enough. I always had been. So I closed the door behind me, knowing I'd start fresh. No more secrets, no more lies, just me, standing tall, finally at peace with myself. That's the best revenge I could ask for: living honestly, healing fully, and never letting another betrayal shake me like that again. I had faced the darkness, and I'd found my way back into the light.